but what we try to get unique events and backstage access in all our expeditions. Remember that we balance nature and culture,
Yeah.
and that's when I say culture, I'm referring to history, archaeology, and current local culture and the food. So we try to experience everything. For example, when if we do Egypt, and in a small group, we close one of the pyramids, and we have Dr. Sahi Hawass, the most important archaeologist in Egypt, giving us a lecture at sunrise at the Sphinx privately for us.
Welcome to the Pay Me in Plane Tickets podcast. I have a wonderful guest on today. I have Jorge Salas, who's the founder of New Paths Expeditions. Understanding that this is a firm that allows unforgettable experiences through expert guide, expertise sort of moments and movements. And I'm just very grateful to have him on to kind of share a different side of travel life with his story and also the mission that his firm is trying to do in changing in not only how we travel, but in what we experience when we travel. So welcome, Jorge, to the Pay Me in Plane Tickets podcast.
Jelani, thank you so much for having me here, and what a kind introduction. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody that is listening. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Awesome, glad to have you on. Normally, when we do these podcasts, I always like to start with the person. Give us a little bit about sort of your early days coming up, growing up. How was travel introduced to you when you were younger, or did kind of it come later in life? Because it happens to a few guests.
Seemed, of course, but in my case, it started very young. I was born in Peru, and very early I started traveling to the U.S. in exchange as exchange student. My father had some businesses there, and so I was traveling. And also my family came from Huancavelica, which is a little town, the smallest city at the time in the Andes of Peru. But I was born in the hard years, are far behind in the history of Peru, gladly. But I was born during those tough years that we had in the early 70s and into the 80s. And so there was a big migration to the coast of Peru, where Lima is, the capital city, and my family had to move there. But my father, he loved the Andes and his origins, so he will take us constantly on trips to the Andes. We could not go to Huancavelica because it was the heart of what was happening here that was not good. I don't want to remember those years, to be honest.
Right.
But gladly they are way behind us. And but we will travel to the Andes. So for me, it was very common. Now I take my friends to travel to the Andes, not on our trips, but when they come, and I take them on these back roads, and having this 3,000 meter, 10,000 feet cliffs on the side and a dust road. I grew up seeing that, so it was very common for me. And I think that what my father wanted us to see is how different the Andean culture is. Um, so it was quite important. But so traveling inside Peru and the diversity of this country provides, and South America as a whole, but also traveling to other parts of the world, as being very young, it really marked me. But there was my grandfather on my mother's side. He used to work for the United Nations, and he was traveling all over the world, and I saw him very few times during my lifetime. But this was the times that you would go to the airport and pick up people, no, and not ask them to take a taxi, no,
Right.
or to say goodbye. They were big events. And I always wondered where was this plane going? What was going he was going to be seen? And I think that planted the bug. And later, I used to make a lot of questions about that to him, and I imagine that it was because of that he gave me as a gift his already old
Yeah.
at the time collection of National Geographic magazines, together with
Wow.
a subscription for the new ones.
Yeah.
So I remember spending my early years looking at these old magazines and then getting the new ones and seeing how scientific views were changing and new findings be appearing and contrasting them. And I remember saying when I was very young that I wanted to become a National Geographic photographer. And so I think that was the beginning. And then I kept on going, studied in Chile, and became a mountain guide in the early years of Patagonia.
I was gonna
because
ask.
I see. Sorry for that. See, so we traveled to Patagonia very young, because we were rock climbing,
Yeah.
and and that started it all. And I my English was decent, so a leader of a well-known mountain company got sick, and I was asked to cover for him. So because I knew all the routes already,
Hmm.
and this is an American company, and these guests, they really liked what I did, and then I just started traveling and never stopped, and it's 32 years since then.
Wow. So pretty much travel has transcended you in many different ways and also in different avenues. And with that, you were able to experience, I would say, an authentic, because I feel like your experience is very authentic. It's almost uh since like you were born. You've always had this nature and desire to learn through going to new lands and different places. Like when you just mentioned spending time in Chile, I was going to bring up Patagonia to see, okay, were you over there? And you were like, yes, I started mountain climbing, and that experience, and also with the profession that you were doing, allowed you to sort of get a different taste instead of sort of what normal people feel is like they feel like they're trapped in this particular box. They kind of have to follow the same sort of train tracks as everybody else, but you kind of broke off from that. And I want to now ask you this question because through all that experience that you just beautifully laid out, what inspired your new firm, New
Well,
Path
s-
Expeditions?
thank you so much, Ilani. See, well, um, after Patagonia, I kept on going in travel,
Oh,
and
so you continued. Got it.
I continued to work as my first group, this event that I told you. I was under 20 years old. I was 19 and plus. So it was very, very young, and I got the opportunity to lead some other groups, luckily. And then I kept on going, and I worked for a British Australian company. I ended up running their operations in South America very young, and I kept on going. Then, with a little cuts here and there for personal reasons, I always kept on leading expeditions until eventually ended up working with one of the most important travel brands in the US, that was focused in natural history travel. And that was fantastic. And I really got the opportunity to start exploring the world. I ended up becoming their senior expedition leader, then product development. Then I ran the operations in South
I see.
America and then in other areas. And then I kept on growing and started to sit at the board of some of this brand. But they were bought by a corporation who was bought by another bigger corporation and then another bigger one. You know the story, and uh, and then things at the beginning it was great, and I got the opportunity to train and to learn other sides of the business. I got into the courses for management positions and director positions.
Got it.
And it was great, and I started to work in safety of ships and planes,
Yeah.
and then a little bit, and I got a degree in finance at Cornell and marketing. And so my life started to
Cool.
evolve. But then eventually, Gilani, there was, I ended up finding myself between still traveling gladly, between exploring remote places like Papua New Guinea. I was in charge also of the emergencies and crisis management at that point. So I will be traveling and waking up at 3 in the morning and having to run to cross a couple of continents to fix an issue, and then come back to see the merge or the purchase of a company and use a suit and a tie. And then the decisions started to be more about the stockholders'
Got it.
positions and making a quarter projections every
Yeah.
quarter.
Yeah.
The concern about the quad. So I felt that the concern, we were not working in the quality of the
Mhm.
product for our guests and what the services that we were providing, but we were worried about cash flow and
Right.
cash flow only and no long-term growth. and in a service in an industry that is a service industry, that your client, it's the 1000 details industry. That's the way I like to call it. You have to worry about so many details and to make it, and it's so personalized to each individual, to the individual needs of your guests. um, that I felt that things were not right, that where they were going. So about 11 years ago, 10 and a half, we're about to enter our 11th year, I decided to um, to to resign and start New Paths Expeditions and try to do educational travel through experience. And we started with remote destinations because that's where I had an expertise and less competition. And our first trip was Ethiopia. Right.
Right.
And then from there we have grown to 58 destinations, man, and it has been a ride that I'm blessed. What can I tell you? I can only thank the world for all this and our
Yeah.
guests.
So originally I had jumped ahead, basically going from mountain trekking and all that to starting new paths. But actually, there was a lot of knowledge growth that you accumulated throughout the time, and then you got to at least see how this type of business operates, but also see the failings and also what you I like the quote you had. It's a business of 1,000 details. So you got to see kind of where you can optimize and also where you would not want a company to fall into the same traps because of it's been gobbled up by different corporations who now have different they have their sights are on different things. They're not necessarily concerned about the experiences and maybe also even the travel sector life of it. They're more concerned about cash flows and profit and losses. And that was something that just didn't interest you anymore, or at least didn't interest you in the strength that they were putting onto it, the emphasis they were putting onto it. So now you have 11 years, almost congrats on the 11th year right there.
Thank you.
Round of applause. New past expedition that's getting to start up, and you kind of had this operation going. And you said you first started out in remote locations. So Ethiopia was the first one. Shout out to
Right.
Africa.
Oh, yes.
You got to give it out to there. So kind of educate us on the building of this. So you're starting out in Ethiopia. How do you expand? Did it kind of start slow, or was it a bit more accelerated? Like this business was taking off, this idea where people wanted authentic experiences led by caring individuals such as yourself. Did it kind of grow faster, or did it take a little bit of time to convince the sort of the market?
Well, a little bit of both, and it's a mixed story, but a very happy one, I think.
Mhm.
So we started the first trip with the idea was where can we go that we have. So at this point, I was already 20 years, 20 plus years in traveling and leading expeditions. And gladly there were a bunch of friends that liked to travel with me. Of course, it started with me. It was a one-man band. I was doing the brochures and the
Yeah.
website and organizing the trip, and literally sleeping under my desk during those first years, and especially the first one. So where can we go that we have less competition? Of course, there's less people with a destination in their imaginary, but less competition. And we decided in Ethiopia, such a diverse and fantastic country. It truly is diverse, and I highly recommend it to anyone. It's a gem. And and then the next one was Madagascar. So the first trip we offered, we were able to fill it up with friends.
Beautiful.
And the next one was Madagascar, where I had a lot of experience, and we were able to do two groups that filled up. Let's remember that it wasn't that hard to fill them up. Well, it was, to be honest. But in comparison to other companies, we do small groups, only 12 persons as a maximum. And we always have a leader that must have at least 25 years of experience and a
Wow.
master's degree or a PhD to lead our groups. And also we have a local master guide that has to be a local, that has to have 15 years of experience. Of course, there's some exemptions because there's some very young people that we have met along the way that are extremely gifted,
Mhm.
and we take advantage of. Please come to our team. So we break the rule a little bit, but so that made these friends to tell other friends. So we did Madagascar, and we had two groups of 12 persons. I think one was 12, and then the other one was 10. Then we did Sri Lanka, and we also did two groups. and so on. And then we continued, and Papua New Guinea came along, and then Mongolia came along,
Mhm.
and then Svalbard in the Arctic, and so at the end it was slow, but we wanted it to be slow because the way it all started and the way we try to keep it until today is that we are more a travel club
Mhm.
than a business. So what
Wow.
has been happening is that we look for like-minded guests that are interested, that have some experience in traveling into third world in third world destinations, so they know that there are certain things that we do expeditions, we don't do tours, and that means that things will not, it's not if they may not, they will
Yeah.
not go as planned eventually. If not, it's not an expedition, and that's
Right.
part of the fun. And we need people that are open-minded with this matters. Of course, these were the early years,
Mhm.
and we started to grow little by little, and then we started to get private trips, and those need to be more perfect, and
Outstanding.
we started
Right.
to do safaris, and that's how we went. And I can say that as a media, and it's not exact, but every year about 10% of our friends, traveling friends, the way we
Mhm.
call them, our guests,
Yeah.
will stop traveling for X reasons. They start doing cruises, age, for different reasons, but we will get about 15% of referrals. So we would grow at a 5% rate throughout these years,
Mhm.
which was something that we could handle. We could stay worrying about the individual needs of our guests, of our friends, not be forced to grow our team too fast. Of course, we
Right.
want more people to be with us. We love to work with people every day, but growing and training needs to be also in this organic pace, and it has been a blessing to be able to grow not too fast. 5% has as a media per year has been the ideal one to be able to maintain the quality of service that we provide. I do want to mention, if you don't mind, that of our regulars, 68% of them take 2 trips with us every year, 2 expeditions with us every year, and 98% of persons that try our services for the first time, they decide to book us again, with us again. And I think that it's because we have been very careful not to grow too fast. We have said no to a couple of opportunities for fast growth and
Yeah.
immediate gain in numbers. We have preferred to stay in this organic growth, that's the way I call it. And again, this has allowed us to get these numbers that of which we are very proud, and we hope to maintain a similar growth through the years. With, of course, the pandemic in the middle that created a little bit of an issue, but well,
Well,
you got to get some of those.
we'll forgive those numbers. That's fine. But I love what you're mentioning. It's a very targeted growth plan. It's a very targeted approach to these expeditions, this type of experience. It's not necessarily, and actually, I wanted to jump into because now I'm just recalling because you mentioned that each of your team members they have a wealth of experience in terms of uh, certifications and also in terms of like the degrees and also like their sort of like their disciplines. But then also there's like this just time. It's like, hey, you need to be in this world at least for X amount of years because sometimes there's a lot of things you can't learn from a book. There's a lot of things you can't learn from even being on the job. Sometimes you have to just be in that world when it comes to travel. So I wanted to actually talk about building a team because what's really the heart of New Paths is the team that you have curated with the likes of yourself, but everybody else, it's you can't mimic that. You can't replicate that. Like a Coca-Cola soda or anything like that. So, yeah. So just kind of lay it on me. How is it? How is the team building? What goes through your head when it comes to New Paths and building the proper team for each experience or whatever?
Thank you, and that gives me the opportunity to say thank you to everybody that is and has been and with our team through the years. Not everybody remains; most of them do gladly. But of course, everyone has been such an important component, and yes, experience is something that is very important for us. Um, there are so many possible variables that can go wrong when you're working in remote destinations. And of course, our guests must never see them or perceive them, and we need to be ahead of anything that can happen. I'm not talking about security, because security is something that we decide which destinations are. That has been my area of expertise, and that's my early morning every day. It's over an hour and a half at least of analyzing what's happening in each of our destinations, and what is the scenario. That's the most important part, and I think that something that why our guests trust us again and again and again. If a destination needs to be canceled because there's a slight possibility of risk or reprogram, we would be the first ones. We will not continue just because of securing cash flow or anything like that. Our
Understand.
guests are number one. But then when you're going there, a bus may fail, the plane is delayed, and you have to plan. And every time is different. It's not that you can give a manual, and if this happens, and I've seen a lot of companies, especially the big ones, trying to make these manuals, and really it's impossible to be ahead of every single variable of things that you need to adapt along the way. So it takes people. I'm talking about the field staff, expedition leaders, and guides, and master local guides. Um, it needs to be people that have the experience, but also the personality cut. Let's remember that also we do groups. As we do private trips
Right.
for families and individuals, we do groups, and even though they are small, part of our job also is to bring the best of each member of the group into the expedition, and those things that are not great. So to be kept not involved, and that requires a little bit of social management.
Mhm.
That some people are born with this, and identifying these people, it's the key. I was lucky because in the 20 something years that I of experience that I had before founding NPE, I was in charge of training leaders and guides around the world for the companies that I worked, and also for the suppliers that we had. No, for example, I worked with boats in different destinations, ships, the cruise, the activities, the rhythms, and I kept on traveling all the time. There were many years that I was traveling 300 days a year. Now I travel 200, so it's a little bit less. But
That was insane.
see, so I had a little bit of an advantage that I knew already my colleagues and the new upcoming leaders, the younger than me, and the local guides. I had already relationships with them. I had seen them in the field. So we were lucky enough to be able to invite them to be part of our team, some as freelance and some as staff. But I had that advantage, and I have to recognize, and that's an advantage that NPE has until today. That I think very few companies have the that the owner had knows the
Right.
teams that are around the world, and I remain on the field. I travel to trade shows for many reasons and parts of the business, but I keep on leading at least 4 expeditions per year, especially the new ones.
Hmm.
Every year we launch 3 or 4 new destinations, and I keep on leading all those expeditions. And I repeat 1 or 2 that I will go as a companion or as a lecturer, just to see the leaders, or where we needed to
Oh,
change a leader because someone, for X reasons, personal reasons, had to stop working with us.
awesome.
So I think that that's one of the things I really enjoy developing the new expeditions
Yeah.
and checking the itineraries, working with our wonderful office staff that provides great service to our guests before and after their departures. But of course, spending time with our friends and our team in the field, it's probably the most important task and job that I have.
It is. And I like that basically what I'm hearing is there's a lot of care and effort, but you're never out of touch, even though a lot has expanded and grown in your responsibilities. You're still taking that time to go on the lead the 4 expeditions, a year, and then also parlaying that with being a guest, being a taking that experience for yourself to kind of see where you can improve the experience for NP, or perhaps let something go. Maybe you can change it up a little bit, and that's just what life is like. Everything always has to sort of change. So, given the growth of NPE, how many experiences does NPE offer? I guess now at the 11th year.
Well, in terms of destination of countries, because
Okay,
destinations it will be too wide and very difficult to add.
got it.
But in terms of countries, we are as of now, we are on 58 countries where we have operated multiple trips through this almost 11 years, uh, mixed of private trips and group departures. Um, and now we are working on a few more at the moment. So we're hoping to grow. But again, now this year we are adding three new ones that we are working. Sometimes it takes a little longer. We never. Sometimes it's faster. Developing a new destination can take sometimes something around 2 years. But in certain cases, you find bumps on the roads, and oh no, I have to launch this departure because I mentioned it on a podcast or something. No, if it's not perfect, or to guess, if it's not perfect, if it's not to our standards and it has not been tested, we will not launch it. And so that's our commitment to our guests, and they see that, and they realize that it's not that we're failing them, is that on the contrary,
Yeah,
we are. If it's not up to our standards,
yeah.
it will not be launched. No, so
So basically, it's 58 right now, but it's also
thank you.
it's not what you and how you lead for NPE and your vision. It's that you're not sort of dropping a pin and picking a place and calling it an experience. It's very much it has to live up to a certain level of uh, scrutiny that needs to be applied to it before it is added to the NPE portfolio. So,
Correct.
and
The thing is that,
yeah,
sorry,
yeah. No,
sorry,
go on, no,
if you
go
don't,
on. Yeah,
thank you. The thing is that there's multiple components on our trips, and we don't take them out off a shelf. Of course, once we have our backbone, and when we do a private trip, we can customize it, but we know that this is the way it will work, and so it's the pacing. How many nights that people will be rest, that it makes sense chronologically, that we have the right leaders, that the safety components, that the we never talk about this, but in case of an medical emergency, are we going to be able to manage it without issues for our guests? And so that, there are so many different components. So that's why we have to be very careful. Again, we started with an advantage because of all the years of previous experience that me and my colleagues and our leaders have and had. So that gave us advantage to be able to grow our portfolio quite fast. But now we are adding, as I tell you, 2, 3 departures. But it takes a lot of care, and it has to be perfect for everybody, for all our guests.
no, and I can appreciate that as well. I like that it's a very disciplined approach to adding destinations and things of that nature because um, as a traveler, you want that sort of authenticity. You want that sort of care to your expedition. You don't want to just sort of feel like it's a bit sort of just sort of shelved as a part of the process. I think what NPE is offering is something that is unique in which each destination has been curated and cultivated and almost like massaged to where you're getting the full package. It's not
Correct.
sort of like
And
short.
and our special events. I have made a mistake. I should have mentioned it before because I think those are something that define us and make us a game changer, is
Mhm.
the quality of the special events, especially provided for private groups, for
Yeah,
private departures, guests, and for small groups as small as ours. No,
yeah,
we are always looking not in every destination because some are a little bit difficult, but what we try to get unique events and backstage access in all our expeditions. Remember that we balance nature and culture,
yeah.
and that's when I say culture, I'm referring to history, archaeology, and current local culture and the food. So we try to
Yes.
experience everything. And one of the ways we do it is a part of our itineraries, the way we curate them, but
Yeah.
also adding special events like, for example, when if we do Egypt, and in a small group, we close one of the pyramids exclusively for our small groups, And we
Wow.
have Dr. Sahi Hawass, the most important archaeologist in Egypt, giving us a lecture at sunrise at the Sphinx privately for us. Or, for example, if we do the pre-Inca cultures in the north on the coast of Peru, which is a destination that is not well known in the US, but I highly recommend everybody to give it a look. This is like Egypt in the Americas. It's something incredible. And we go to the Lord of Sipan, the Tutankhamun of the Americas,
Wow.
as important as Tutankhamun in terms of gold and silver, and it's really something else. I really recommend everybody to have a look. We go and have time and share a beer with the discoverer of the Lord of Sipan, Lord Dr.
Yeah.
Walter Alba, in his home. And if we go to the Lady of Cao, the oldest female ruler in the Americas, one of the best research places that you can see, we have access to the researchers that are working on site, and we see mummies and pottery and exquisite textiles and
Mhm.
uh, 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 and metal pieces that are not shown to the public. And we spend a couple of hours kind of work interviewing and working and assisting the researchers, or for example, in Tikal, I just came back, and Francisco Estrada Bell, Tulane professor, that that has his discovery in 2024 has been considered one of the top 10 discoveries in the world in 2024. He is our lecturer there. Then
Wow.
the rock star of bird watching, Fernando Angulo Pratalongo, he's the guy has won more times the Birdman of how many
Yeah.
species you can see in one day.
Yeah.
He is our guide in several parts of Peru and in Colombia, and so on. I can keep on going.
Yeah.
So we try to add these unique events that provide access that no one else. So finding those and being able to, sometimes we cannot promote them and they are surprises because these people are not in tourism,
Yeah.
and sometimes they have a new finding and that's where they're going to be. But we do work on them, and on NPE expeditions you will be finding this kind of experiences that I think really set us apart, and that's why it takes time to launch these products.
And you know what? I'm glad it does because I would love those type of experiences right
Glad
there.
to hear.
It makes it very special. Everything you just said is amazing. Closing off one of the pyramids just to experience that, it would be a dream. And I encourage everybody to give NPE New Pass Expedition a try.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you so much.
it's the start of the new year. What are you looking forward to add in the portfolio or for the business for this year? What's kind of coming up
Yes.
on the horizon?
Well, I have a 12-year-old daughter, Josefina, and she started traveling since she was very young with me,
Okay.
and 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 she has accompanied me. She's already my assistant on during my trips. So,
Okay,
and
okay.
she has learned all my very, very. She has learned a lot, and she's already an asset. And
Got it.
I think that one of the things that we are going to be adding is the family line, family
Yeah.
trips, family expeditions. So we're working one of Galapagos, another one in and coast of Peru, northern coast of Peru and Machu Picchu, one in Guatemala, Morocco, fabulous destination for kids, Madagascar and their lemurs.
Yes.
It blows their minds. So we are starting to build this portfolio, and we have created the NPE Young Explorer Club, where she's going to be part of that. But of course, trained infant, young people education. I'm sorry, I missed the word in English. Parvularias are going to be part of this, so that the parents can explore and enjoy,
Mhm.
and also the kid and have activities for their age, and the kids to have activities that are, of course, in the research, in the waking up their curiosity. That's what we're doing. So we're talking microscopes and telescopes and playful activities, so they really get to learn. And so
So
so that's one of the things that we're doing,
got it.
and we are making a little bit bigger our portfolio of small ships We have a great selection for charters. We have a great selections of places that of boats that are quite small,
Mhm.
and and we have improved it. And now we are going to get into educational side of things, and we are attending the
Wow.
ETC, the Educational Travel Conference, to start hopefully to get the opportunity by one of the universities, museums, and zoos that have worked with me in the past through the brands that I worked for, and I hope that they start working with us now in the future.
So basically, you have family destinations is on the horizon, basically going to be added. Then you also have education, and then of course chartering in terms of chartering for boats and everything like that to add to the experience. That's what's pretty much in development or about to be in operation in for NPE New Paths Expedition. So I know that you're a busy man, and we like to, at least not take too much of your time, even though we can dive so deep into everything. I'd like to get a little bit of a pay me in plane tickets questions to kind of see where you fall into the spectrum here. As at least give us the new past expedition sort of viewpoint to these little quirky questions. Let me know if you're ready.
Let's go.
Let's do it. All right. So, if you were to be paid in plane tickets, which airline are you choosing?
Mm, Emirates.
Oh, Emirates is the big one. Yeah, Emirates actually is, we get that a lot.
Uh, what can I tell you? Yes. Well, Qatar was up there. I don't want to give. I have great friends in Qatar, but the
Right.
Emirates, I think, is a little bit ahead. And
That's a
Qatar
good
friends,
choice.
go, go.
When you do travel, uh, let's say not with NPE, are you Airbnb or hotel?
A mix of both. It
Mix of
depends on
both.
the
Yeah.
destination and what I'm doing and with whom I am. I, I, and depending on the city, because there's certain cities that
Mhm.
the Airbnbs work great, and there's others that it can be a little bit too expensive, and they have this, in South America and Asia,
Yeah.
you get Airbnbs and they will clean for you, but I was recently in Miami and I used an Airbnb, and the cleaning fees and these extra fees and all these hidden fees were a little bit too much to my taste. So if
Yeah.
I compare that to a hotel, then I would probably choose a hotel. Now, in certain other places, like in Latin America, in certain parts of Asia, this is a little bit more relaxed, and hosts are really worried about having you happy. So that's a great, and the locations are fantastic, and the
Mhm.
and the pricing at the end up being more convenient. No?
Oh, okay. So it's a mix of both. And actually, that is a response that we do get. It does depend on the type of travel you're having and also, I guess, like what type of experience you're looking to have. And I guess also where you're going to. When you do travel, do you have like a credit card, debit card you're using for points and miles, or you like cash just like me?
Well, it depends. Again, it's the if the charges are going to be in U.S. Dollars,
Yeah.
then I would, and the country allows. There's several countries that allow that. Then I will go with a credit card that will give me points. And sometimes when you're abroad, it will give you even more points. So that is fantastic.
Right.
But there's other countries that will not be able to charge you in US dollars, and then the exchange rate fees and the hidden fees of the
Yeah.
banks and the local bank and your bank and intermediary bank and
Mhm.
all of it becomes a mess. You never know how much you're spending. So in that case, I go cash.
Got you. Okay. It does depend. And actually, everything you mentioned is sort of the same way I will operate. If I'm in the US and maybe there's a benefit, I'll try for the points, but um, to avoid any complications, the cash is kind of the safest way to go. When you do travel, is it a carry-on or check bag?
On an expedition, I do check my bag.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that does make
On an
total sense.
expedition, I do it, even though it's a small. I know I'm going to have to be waiting for my guests, which will be checking also.
Mhm.
And of course, with New Paths Expeditions, we have people at most of the airports, inside the airports, not all, but most,
Mhm.
especially in the remote areas, we have these connections that allow us to have people that will pick up our luggage and check it. and then they were going to be moved and carried and on the bus, and all tips are included. So
Mm.
it's not really hassle. Now, if I'm going to a conference and it's going to be a 3 day trip or 4 day trip, then carry on. But to be honest, now everyone is doing carry on.
Yeah,
So the problem of the overhead bins,
it's the
it's a little
same.
bit too much, no? And if you're a
Yeah.
little late, gladly, because of I travel a lot, I get priority I board early, but sometimes the life happens and you can't, and that and a couple of times I
Mhm.
had an issue. But I have to mention that I'm reconsidering things because it in I was all I have been lucky. Imagine 32 years and never had my luggage lost
Okay.
until my last trip to Australia. And I had to spend 4 days without luggage, and they refused to honor the agreement. And after a month of fighting, I just decided to, oh, this is just too much work. And
Wow.
so airlines, some of them are starting to be not responsive and do not honor their agreements.
Yeah.
So I'm reconsidering. I do
Okay.
want to mention that, and I hope that airlines uh, catch up with what or go back to the normal and
Right.
more decent ways if I gonna put it in a way
Wow.
that I do see.
No, I'm sorry to hear that. No, that's a horrifying experience, honestly. To be honest with
It
you.
is.
Yeah.
It
Uh,
was. It was.
it is, it was, yeah. I definitely I sympathize. Um, when you do travel, is it the window, aisle, or middle seat on the plane?
Aisle, always aisle.
Team aisle, there we go.
Yes, of course. See. To stretch, and especially on the long hauls, no? And you're
Yeah,
sitting, you don't want to bother the one on the side, but you really need to stand. Oh no! So whenever I can, I try aisle.
beautiful. We talked about all the good things about travel, and of course, it's been a huge benefit for both of us. But do you have any travel pet peeves?
Meaning things that I don't like much, or
Yeah. So for an
yeah.
example, some would say they don't like when the plane lands and everybody just gets up as
Oh,
if.
well, absolutely. That's something that, and especially after 4 flights and two of them being long haul,
Yeah.
and then they start running. Oh my God, that really, I have to call for patience and remember that I have been tired traveling quite a bit. I have to recognize that. But what can I tell you? TSA and not only TSA, because it's not the US, it's the world in general. Security at airports having to take everything out, and in some
Yeah.
gladly not the shoes anymore in very few airports, but.
Yeah.
No, I'm a photographer, so that
Oh,
gear has
great.
to go with me. So having to, in some of them, they just pass. Some of them, they want to check everything and then open the lenses. I had a couple of broken lenses through the years
Mm.
and issues like that. So that's a little that's a hassle. But I have to recognize that what once the pandemic was over and I was able to get on a long haul flight, I went and I hugged the TSA agent that was, I missed you, man.
I got you. All right. I love it. I love it. Last one. Where's your next trip to?
We are going to, well, the US.
Okay.
I am not right there right now. But when I'm not going home, I'm going to Mobile, Alabama for the ETC conference. But as a trip, we are doing Andalusia. This is a new line that I didn't mention before, but because it's relatively new, but we already launched it last year. This is a soft travel kind of line where we do at least 3 nights. So this is this very luxurious. I love adventure and I love remote destinations, but this is we're doing Spain, the Andalusian train, Al Andalus, which is, formerly owned by the Windsors. This is high-end luxury, and then we are adding some visit to palaces at the beginning and the end of the trip. This was requested by some of our guests.
Mhm.
It's a little bit different to our line, but the idea is to do more relaxed travel to combine them with our adventures. So I'm really looking forward to this upscale experience, and I'm pretty sure the food is going to be fantastic and the wine also.
Ah, that sounds good.
Spain.
I'm excited for it. That's exciting. Okay. Hey George, where can people find you? Where can they find New Paths Expedition? How can they sort of start to dive into this experience that you offer?
Thank you, Jelani. Well, npexpeditions.com. or newpathsexpeditions.com, and you will find our website. Of course, our number is 888-832-7280. And you can contact me directly. I try to be as fast as possible with my emails, and I like to be in contact with our guests and our potential new guests. I am Jorge, that's Jorge at npexpeditions.com. I am at your service, and I really hope that you consider exploring the world with NPE soon. It would be an honor.
Beautiful. I want to just say thank you, George, for coming on. This was a very enlightening conversation that we've had. I got to really learn about not only this particular business, but the amount of care that you have sort of implemented into New Paths Expedition, and also kind of the story and the journey that you went on that kind of led you into this founding venture. I appreciate just your knowledge. I appreciate everything that you have shared with us on the podcast. And I know the guests are going to love this. I know that they're going to want to dive in, and also they're going to try to experience this themselves through your firm. And I think it's going to share the light on how businesses should be running now, and also how it's going to impact the travel sector. So I want to appreciate you for coming on.
Jelani, thank you so much. What kind words. Thank you. You're very too kind. But I really hope that people have fun, and that they get excited about exploring the world. And if they don't have a passport, that they get one very soon. Thank you so much, Jelani. Really, thank you for this opportunity. It's been an honor, and thank you to everybody that is still listening.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on. Yes, definitely. They should have a passport.
Yes.